Any moment from now, we expect this event to kick off. It is the Nigeria International Investment Partnership Forum. This is the second edition. The first edition took place last year in November in France. And this is the second edition taking place here in New York, United States of America. Here we have the business community, the Nigerian government, providing a platform where would-be investors will get to meet partners, to get to sign deals, not just signing deals, but to make investment announcements that would preferably take action for longer sustainability. And here we have, you can see, members of the Executive Council talking about ministers from the Nigerian government, the business community. So any moment the event will get in earnest. We're expecting 9 plenaries in addition to high-level discussion with investors by the President Muhammadu Buhari, who is actually here. He will actually be giving the keynote address any moment, will I say, later in the day. But for now, we're talking about investments in agriculture, ICT, digital economy, the oil and gas, and how to improve trade. We are saying, Nigeria is saying, let's foster better partnerships for greater investment. And I'll be talking with some of the members of the delegation, and they're interested in ensuring that this is not just a talk shop, but it's something that is put to action for longer sustainable development.
Well, what this does is it gives us an opportunity to talk to the outside world, to let potential investors know what is happening in Nigeria. There are different narratives about the situation in Nigeria, but this gives us a first-hand opportunity to actually face the people, let them know what the true picture is, let them know what government is doing to improve the situation, let them know what government is doing with regard to the security situation in Nigeria and the improvement thereof, let them know what government is doing with regard to improving the ease of doing business, such that it will give them an opportunity to be able to make an informed decision with regard to coming to invest in Nigeria.
Trade volume has increased for Nigeria. What will you owe this to? Yes, we know the export for survival thing came on board and trade houses are being opened around the world. Will you also attribute that to that source?
There has been an increase in the non-oil exports. And this is deliberate because the military has embarked on a policy of improving non-oil exports. The whole idea is to increase the revenue that accrues to Nigeria, the foreign revenue that accrues to Nigeria through non-oil exports, such that we want to get Nigeria to a stage whereby we will no longer be reliant on the export of crude oil only. And the investment that government has made in this direction is what has caused the increase in the non-oil exports and the results that we're seeing today.
Yeah, we are ready for the global investors now. That's why we're here. With the PIA, the gas terms are very clear. And of course, we have declared to the world that we're going to be transiting to renewables through gas. So we're actually expecting that there will be a lot of interest in investments in this sector. And we are ready with it. The terms are quite clear now. With the PIA, you can look through and then see exactly what you need to do. In the Ministry of Petroleum, we're also setting up a one-stop shop to be able to make investment easy for people who are coming. So we are ready for them, and we want to signal that to the world in this forum, so that and we're expecting a lot of people to be interested in Nigeria.
Nigeria is ready for investment, but it's a journey. It's not a destination. So even though we are attracting investment now, we can still attract more. So we need to keep working very hard, private sector, government, to improve the operating environment so that private sector will feel more secure, more comfortable to invest more in Nigeria. And our leaders, our government must also continue to create the right policies, the right policy environment, the right infrastructure to encourage private sector investment. There's so much private capital in the world looking for where to go to. Nigeria should transform ourselves to be a hospitable investment destination so that the money we need to build roads, railways, critical infrastructure like power can come in to help us generate employment that we need. If we don't have improved access to electricity, good railway, good security, good policy environment, we can't do well. So we should continue.
What do we need to ensure this happens? Because, like you said,
the right
it's a journey.
environment,
It's been a long journey.
the right environment, right right environments, leadership. Those are things that will make the difference.
It provides us an opportunity to market Nigeria to the world. When you talk about currency, it's important that we know that currencies are facing a lot of challenges globally today as a result of the various crises that we have all around the world. And you've seen funds being moved back to the developed economies. And so the possibility of getting currencies have become more difficult. But I think for Nigeria, we're still doing our best. Our reserves still look good, and they can support almost 9 to 10 months of imports. And I think that with us being here, we'll be able to market Nigeria, and I'm sure that the world will see Nigeria as a country where things are being done for the good of everybody.
And as you know, Nigeria is the number one destination for private capital in Africa. And what we're trying to do here is to stimulate as much investment as we can. And of course, for me, it's actually an event I look forward to be able to market Nigeria properly in a way and manner that we're able to channel FDI into different sectors of the Nigerian economy to develop it.
Nigeria's economy and population are the largest in Africa, with more than $400 billion in GDP and a growing population of more than 200 million people. Is an asset, says the man wearing the president's shoe at this opening session.
I'm pleased to welcome Your Excellencies, seasoned professionals from the private and public sectors, high-level government officials, intellectuals from within and outside Nigeria to this special event of today. I'm delighted that you are all able to honor our invitation to this very strategic forum, which I hope will offer opportunities for discussions on social economic topics, on partnership, and on investment in the Nigerian economy. I commend our own captains of industries represented here. I also commend Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Mrs. Florrie Licia of the Corporate Council on Africa, Ms. Satya Nadella of the Microsoft Corporation, and our own Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, for the statements which they are going to make shortly, and for the words of solidarity for Nigeria. Nigeria is on course for taking her rightful place in the global economy as we continue to sustain our policy reforms, improve governance, and encourage public-private investment in social, human, and physical infrastructure. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria could be the fastest growing African economy by the year 2050 and could move up the global GDP ratings to 14 in the same year, provided we succeed in our efforts to diversify Nigeria's economy away from oil and strengthen its institutions and infrastructure. Of course, we are already committed to diversifying the economy, and we are already enjoying significant results. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, projects global growth to slow from an estimated 6.1% in 2021 to 3.6% in 2022 and 2023. For our economy, we recorded a quarterly GDP growth in Q1 2022. The growth has been mostly driven by non-oil sector, giving credence to the revenue source and diversification agenda of our government. The agricultural sector, our most important, has remained resilient in spite of security concern, in spite of low irrigation, limited inputs, and legacy infrastructure challenges, with strong food demand bolstering growth. Growth in manufacturing reflected stronger household and business consumption on account of the reopening of economic activities and improvement in supply chains. The present growth in our service sector is promising. further privatization, foreign investment, globalization, and competition will serve to stimulate growth and competition in the service sector and the economy as a whole. On the domestic front, the federal government is taking some bold, decisive, and urgent action to address revenue underperformance and improve our operations to make investment in Nigeria very attractive. Overall, the Nigerian economy is ripe for increased investment. But on the other hand, private capital flows into Nigeria, consisting mostly of foreign direct investment, have slowed somewhat, hindering the financing of much-needed infrastructure and natural resource access projects. The current administration is already working on innovative ways to restore and increase these flows. A key strategy being adopted is the Integrated National Planning Strategy, which seeks to identify ways to expand the financing envelope of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria and enhance the sustainable development impact of financing by seeking to integrate and align public and private financial policies, regulatory frameworks, instruments, and business processes with sustainable development. The private sector will play a significant role in this strategy. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, Nigeria's National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 was formulated against the backdrop of several subsisting development challenges in the country and the need to tackle them within the framework of medium and long-term plans. This all-encompassing plan aims to generate 21 million full-time jobs and lift 35 million people out of poverty by the year 2025, thus setting the stage for achieving the government's commitment of lifting 100 million people, Nigerians, out of poverty in 10 years. To attain the objective of the National Development Plan 2021-2025, we estimate that we will require an investment commitment of about 348 trillion naira. Government capital expenditure during the period will be 49.7 trillion or 14.3%, while the balance of 298.3 trillion naira or 85.7% is expected to come from the private sector. Of the 14.3% government contribution, federal government of Nigeria's capital expenditure will be 29.6 trillion or 8.5%, while the subnational government's capital expenditure is estimated to be about 20.1 trillion or 5.8%. The successful implementation of this plan will therefore be heavily dependent on strong partnership between the private and public sector, both within and with development partners outside of Nigeria. The power sector is recognized as a major catalyst for Nigeria's industrialization. To this end, in July 2021, I launched the 614-kilometer Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project to enhance our energy security. The current administration also provided the sovereign guarantee for this vital infrastructural project. When completed, this project will drive industrialization across the country. Furthermore, the first phase of the Presidential Power Initiative will provide over 40 million people with more reliable electricity supply, create 11,000 direct and indirect employment for Nigerians. This will be from power system engineers to electricians and contractors, and this will in turn improve the standard of living while providing homes and businesses with constant, reliable, and affordable electricity supply. You may also wish to note that at the commencement of this administration, 200 billion naira was paid for stranded power to service existing liabilities. Contract terms in power purchase agreement were changed from take or pay to take and pay. Similarly, the distribution companies were made to use banks for bill collections. Prior to this, the Transmission Company of Nigeria was getting only 50% of proceeds. Now the TCN is financially viable and can invest in its own infrastructural projects. May I also inform you that the federal government of Nigeria has always recognized security as another critical element in the flow of investment and in the overall economic and infrastructural development anywhere in the country. In this regard, the current administration has put in much investment in improving security, and we are committed to doing much more. We will continue to give all necessary support to our security outfits in order to ensure that they are able to tackle the challenge headlong. Indeed, the Nigerian military is making significant progress in the fight against terrorism and overall insecurity, and is building the momentum in reducing the challenge to its barest minimum. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine and lingering COVID-19 pandemic have continued to somewhat elevate fiscal risk globally. Nigeria is not immune from and not isolated from the impacts of the crisis. We have experienced high commodity prices, depressed external demand, and declining remittances, all of which affect growth. Similarly, the level of insecurity on account of Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations such as ISWAP, as well as banditry, kidnapping, criminality, and other negative groups across Nigeria have also impacted negatively on our efforts. Happily, we are overcoming such bends with huge prospects for stability, which foreign direct investment could count upon. The advantages and disadvantages of investing in Nigeria far outweigh the challenges. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish us all very successful deliberation, and I assure you that the federal government of Nigeria is very keen to consider the outcome of the deliberations and recommendations of this important forum in order to elevate the Nigerian project to its rightful place of magnitude. I thank you all for listening.
True to these words, investments are thriving in Nigeria, and with interactions ongoing at this forum, there is the hope that more miles in the investment journey will be covered. With encomiums from the global community comes commitment for partnership.
Work to make more transactions and more financing available in sub-Saharan Africa. But I also come here with a commitment from the Biden administration to be very aggressive about the work that we are doing, especially on the heels of the global pandemic and several worldwide supply chain shocks that have affected all of our industries, ranging from healthcare to energy. But I want to be able to let you know that the U.S. Export Bank and America's exporters stand ready to be partners in Nigeria's economic growth. I have already, in a few short months, met with your Minister of Finance, met with the Bank of Industry, met with so many of you who are business owners, who are interested in partnering with our American companies. And so as the chair of Export-Import Bank, the first African American, the first person of color, and only the second woman to be head of the bank, our commitment to sub-Saharan Africa runs deep. I know so many of you work with our Ambassador Leonard in country, but we want to let you know, we are working very closely with our Department of State, very closely with our National Security and Economic Security team, because we firmly understand that economic security is national security and national security is economic security. So over the past 20 years, we have supported nearly $20 billion worth of projects on the continent, and today we have upwards of $2 billion right now in our pipeline. You know, my journey to XM, which began in February, we have had such a deep commitment on sub-Saharan Africa. I hosted my first minister, my first foreign leader was from the continent. So I've also formed an internal Africa working group that has never happened at XM before. And we're bringing in some leading experts on Africa to help us as we move forward on how we are investing in Africa. We have a new board chair of our subcommittee advisory, Jude Kearney, who's a former colleague of mine in the Clinton administration and someone who actually has a deep commitment to Africa. So he'll be joined with the mandated Africa committee that Flora will be sitting on. So our goal is not to drive investment for Africa, but rather to create new opportunities with Africa. All of these efforts are for us, building towards the Africa Leaders Summit that President Biden and Vice President Harris announced that will take place in Washington this September. And it also coincides with our own annual conference. So as we move down the road to the summit, I want and need your help to build the kind of collaborations and projects that both support American export jobs and the economic prosperity of Nigeria. You know, importantly, we have so many different programs that we can use at XM for investments, but we are trying to be as creative and innovative as we possibly can. And we are also wanting you to know that being here at this conference and being here at the UN, we know that it's almost like the major word here is how are we doing more on the energy security side. And that's why projects around renewables and energy efficiency and energy storage, our electric vehicles are very, very important for us. And we're working very closely with our counterparts at the Development Finance Corporation, the U.S. Trade Development Agency, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of State. So in closing, I want to let you know, not only does the Biden administration have a commitment, but I have a personal commitment. I have traveled to the continent in my previous role in the State Department. I have been into working with governors on the continent. I signed the first MOU with U.S. governors and Nigerian governors and have participated in numerous bilateral exchanges. So I'm not new to the work on Africa. I am not new to the work of working with Nigeria. What I am new to is a position that will allow me to have a deeper commitment to work with all of you as collaborators and partners as we move forward to make sure that we have shared prosperity, not just here in America, but also on the continent and in Nigeria in particular. Thank you very much for giving me a few minutes to be here today.
Thank you, Excellency. We can now allow you to leave. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a meeting of this nature will certainly not be complete without someone like Akinwumi Adesina, our own Adesina, President of the ADB, to come and speak. It's your time to take the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Brother Shehu. Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented by His Excellency, the Chief of Staff to the President, my dear big brother, Professor Gambari, Your Excellency, it's good to see you, sir. Excellencies, governors, and in particular my dear brother, Governor Bala, we used to be in the cabinet in Nigeria. Honorable ministers that are here, in particular the Honorable Minister of Finance, who is the governor of the African Development Bank. I have to be a little bit, differentiations have to come because she's the governor of the bank from Nigeria. And please give it up to her, she's supporting us tremendously. Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, always there, helping us globally. Thank you very much, my dear brother, it's good to see you. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, it's nice to see you. The President of the Afro-Exim Bank, my brother and partner, Professor Barama. The CEO of the Corporate Council on Africa, Lisa Flory, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming. Global business leaders and investors, CEOs of Nigeria's leading corporations and financial institutions that are here, members of Nigeria's diaspora, they're all here. I see Jide here and all of you that are doing great work in outside of Nigeria, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am greatly honored to be invited to speak to you today about investing in Nigeria and to share some thoughts on some of the global challenges facing Africa and Nigeria and suggestions for tackling them with global partnerships. Let me start by saying that size matters. Nigeria is Africa's largest country with a population of 208 million people. It is a well-endowed nation with huge natural resources, including oil and gas, for which we are mostly known, mining, but also in agriculture, the blue economy, banking and financial services, digital and creative industries, and of course, industrial manufacturing. You cannot talk of investing in Africa without thinking of Nigeria. With its rapidly growing population, estimated to be the third largest in the world by 2050, Nigeria is and will always remain an investor's dream. With its market pool, rapidly growing middle class, and a burgeoning youth population that not only create demand, but also spark and spur entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigerians excel in whatever they do. All you have to do is just look at Amusan, the way she won the gold medals and set records in same day, 2 world records. Give it up to her, yeah. That's why I am proud to be a Nigerian. I was born as a Nigerian. I'll live as a Nigerian. I'll die as a Nigerian. And on the resurrection morning, I'll ask God for permission if I can come out with Nigerian flag in my hand, as long as it's green and green, green, white, green. I think of who we are. Look at Nollywood today. Nigeria's film industry is estimated at $7.2 billion today and becomes second in the world after Hollywood. Where you send me on assignment and support me strongly from Nigeria, the African Development Bank. I'm pleased and proud to say, with all humility, last year the African Development Bank was ranked as the #1 multilateral financial institution in the world. And this year, the African Development Bank was ranked as the most transparent institution in the world. And so welcome to our world, the Nigerian world. Investors must recognize this and invest in Nigeria. That's why the African Development Bank, together with the Islamic Development Bank, the French Development Agency, are investing $618 million in the Digital and Creative Enterprises program called IDICE in Nigeria. The program will support 225 creative startups, and 451 digital technology small and medium-sized enterprises. They will create 6.1 million jobs and add $6.4 billion to Nigeria's economy. That is the power of international partnerships around Nigeria. The future is not just digital. The future will be driven by digital revolution. According to the estimates of McKinsey, the number of tech startups in Africa has increased by threefold to reach 5,200 companies, with half of those being fintech companies. Today, Nigeria has 5 out of the 7 unicorns in Africa that have raised almost $1.4 billion out of the total of $4 billion raised by fintech companies all across Africa in 2021. When you think of financial services, digital innovations, don't think far, think Nigeria. With Flutterwave, Opay, Andela, and InterSwitch holding the status of unicorn companies worth at least $1 billion. And I ran into the young man running Flutterwave, Benga Agbola, as I was walking into it. Benga, are you here? Just a shout out to you and say, if you're here, thank you and keep doing well. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria holds impressive investments that are global references. The newly constructed $19 billion Dangote petrochemical and fertilizer complex, the world's largest ammonia plant, in the free trade zone with a new deep sea port, is exactly the kind of massive infrastructural and industrial manufacturing that is needed to make Nigeria a regional and global powerhouse in gasoline, diesel, and aviation, fuel, and fertilizer value chains. And I see the Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mr. State, I think you will agree with what I'm saying. Yes, Nigeria has several challenges, I accept. But Nigeria remains an attractive investment destination. That's why the African Development Bank has invested $4.5 billion in Nigeria to help unlock, for example, its huge agricultural potential. The Minister of Agriculture is here. They used to call us HMA. I think they still call you HMA. The African Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and the Islamic Development Bank, whose Vice President, I believe, is here, has provided $540 million to develop special agro-industrial processing zones. And thank you, Minister of Finance, for helping us to move that along. This financing will boost food and agribusiness value chains across Nigeria and make Nigeria more competitive. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the power of international partnerships working for Nigeria. Your Excellency, Mr. President, we, the partners, are looking forward to your launching the landmark special agro-industrial processing zones soon. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, roses comes with thorns. Nigeria's economic and growth potential roses have a few thorns. But those thorns should not discourage us. They call on us to strengthen international partnerships around Nigeria. Nigeria's growth will be conditional on its ability to fix its massive infrastructure deficits. The National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan shows that Nigeria will need a total financing of $759 billion to support infrastructure over a 23-year horizon from 2020 to 2043. This covers tackling the crippling lack of energy to power the economy, including power generation, transmission and distribution infrastructure, water and sanitation, and transport infrastructure. The African Development Bank has invested over $44 billion in infrastructure in Africa over the last 6 years. Together with our partners, we stand ready to build strong alliances to help Nigeria tackle its infrastructure deficits. At the Africa Investment Forum, organized by the African Development Bank and its partners in March of 2022, and Professor Rama is here from the Afri-Exim Bank, a great partner with us on that. We mobilized investment commitment of $16.1 billion to finance the Lagos to Abidjan highway that will boost Nigeria's connectivity, trade, and competitiveness. That is the power of partnerships around Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, African countries are facing today a huge debt challenge due to the confluence of factors, especially COVID, climate, and of course the Ukraine conflict, what I call the 3 C's. The solution for them is simple. The 3 F's: finance, finance, and more finance. Financing is critical because the debt to GDP ratio of Africa has increased to 70%. Several countries are at the risk of high debt distress due to unsustainable debt levels. Nigeria's total debt level is 42.84 trillion naira, or $103 billion. External debt level stands at 16.61 trillion naira, or $40 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my firm belief that Nigeria needs help to tackle its debt burden. International partnerships on debt are helping Africa and Nigeria. The issuance of special drawing rights by the International Monetary Fund of $650 billion helped to provide liquidity to support 2 countries. However, Africa only received $33 billion out of all of that, which is pretty small. The call made by the African heads of state and government for developed economies to rechannel $100 billion of additional SDRs to Africa will go a long way in helping to reduce the debt burden, and of course for that as well, in Nigeria. And allocating this SDR, some of it through the African Development Bank, will actually allow us to leverage it 4 times. Because we are a leveraging machine as AAA financial institutions, we can deliver more financing to Nigeria and Africa. Nigeria and other African countries, therefore, in my opinion, need debt relief. They cannot run up the hill carrying a backpack full of sand. African countries, including Nigeria, need international partnerships to tackle climate change. Africa, which only accounts for 3% of total carbon emissions, suffers more from the negative impacts of climate change. I just came back from Cabo Verde. I went to Mauritania. In Cabo Verde, in the last 5 years, they've never had a single day of rain. I was in Mauritania, vast areas deserted just because of climate change that we didn't cause. And so Africa, including Nigeria, is suffering a lot from it. All you have to do in Nigeria is take a look at the Lake Chad Basin. It used to be about 25 million kilometers square. You look at it today, it's nothing there. It has gone, everything has gone with it. We lose $75 billion, $15 billion a year in Africa due to climate change. And if we don't change that, that will rise to roughly $50 billion by 2030. Therefore, Africa needs financing for climate change, and Nigeria needs climate financing, because Nigeria will need $247 billion between 2020 and 2030 to tackle climate change. And, Your Excellency, Mr. President Buhari's great issue is we have to revive and revitalize the Lake Chad Basin. International partnerships are needed, and they must be developed to support Nigeria in such a great effort. The African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation have launched what we call the African Adaptation Acceleration Program to mobilize $25 billion of financing for climate adaptation for Africa. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the road may be long, the journey may sometimes be rough, but we must keep hope alive. Nigeria will not be alone. the African Development Bank, and other development partners, many of whom are here today, will be there to strongly support Nigeria. I like the song by Michael Jackson that also says, "The man in the mirror." It says, I'm talking about the man in the mirror. I'm asking him also to change his ways. We must change our ways sometimes. And His Excellency the President talked about it himself. To attract greater foreign direct investment to Nigeria, we must fix the security situation. Capital does not like to be troubled. Ultimately, investment capital must be made comfortable. Only then can it be attracted. Investment capital in the quantum required to accelerate Nigeria's growth and development can only be attracted in the presence of secure environments. Essentially, investors will vote with their money about where to have it positioned. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with the right conditions in place, we can confidently say Nigeria is a great investment destination. Believe in us, invest in us, and invest with us, and you will not be disappointed. Thank you very much.
Flori Leza, President of the CCA, please present her address.
Good morning, good morning. Let me start by, Nigeria is therefore a priority country for the Corporate Council on Africa. And we appreciate that we have the opportunity to work with who want to increase health security, food security, build infrastructure that's needed. We invite you to meet with him, and he is always looking to serve the interests of the African Continental Free Trade Area, of which Nigeria is a part. And let me conclude my remarks by restating that we believe in Nigeria, in the Nigerian people, and we believe that, as Secretary Blinken said in his virtual meeting with President Buhari, that there is an American commitment to Nigeria, and CCA will continue to play our part in supporting that relationship and building a stronger U.S.-Africa trade and investment business relationship, including with Nigeria. So thank you once again, and we look forward to an engaging discussion throughout today geared towards unlocking opportunities between the United States and Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Apart from the domestic challenges, like most economies in the world, Nigeria's economy is also facing challenges in many fronts. Factors impacting the current economic situation are driven by an interplay of external and internal causes, including the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the ongoing war in Ukraine, elevated inflation, insecurity, narrow fiscal space, as well as slowdown in foreign portfolio and direct investments due to the flight to safety. In 2020, the Nigerian economy shrunk and went into recession, one of the deepest recessions that we have witnessed since 1983. The COVID-19 crisis drove the economic slowdown. The economic context was marked by capital outflows, so we saw investors leaving Nigeria because of the intensified risk aversion. We also had low oil prices and shrink foreign remittances. The economic situation has improved with successive recoveries now up to 7 quarters. In the last quarter, 2022, we have reported an economic growth of 3.54% in real terms. This is compared to 3.11% in Q1 2022. In the first half of the year, growth was driven by the non-oil sector, and also compared to the same period last year, the growth is really a very impressive one. The reforms implemented by the government are critical and timely, and they're designed to alleviate the impact of the recession on the economy and also add additional fiscal space. Some of the initiatives that we have taken that have helped us in this growth path include: 1, the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative. which is targeted at increasing Nigeria's GDP, revenue to GDP ratio from 8% to 15% by the year 2025. We've also designed, in the process of implementing the Accelerated Revenue Mobilization Reforms AMO program. This is in partnership with the World Bank. It is designed to leverage the momentum of the SRGI to concretely address domestic revenue challenges. Recall that in 2020, during the COVID-19 period, several countries had to set up different economic fiscal plans to be able to shore up their economies. We designed and commissioned the Economic Sustainability Plan, costed at $5.9 billion. The plan was introduced very early at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it helped us to stimulate and diversify the economy, to retain and create new jobs, and to extend social protection to the vulnerable members of our society. During the course of our work, we realized that there was a need to clean up different fiscal acts that we have in the country. And we now instituted the annual finance acts, which have now become a tradition. We designed annual finance acts to support the implementation of our annual budgets, and we have used the instruments of this act to gradually amend fiscal laws that had some gaps in them or that were not friendly to businesses. Everywhere we go, we hear this issue of the debt of Nigeria is a problem and is not sustainable. The debt and debt financing that we do in Nigeria is following a designed debt management strategy. As of today, and this has been reported by two previous speakers, Nigeria's public debt stock is $100.1 billion, or 14.6 trillion naira, which represents 24% of the nominal GDP as 2021. This is below the 40% threshold that we had set up for ourselves. Nigeria operates a 4-year rolling medium-term debt management strategy, which guides the borrowing strategy of the federal government. And we have specific indices that we very closely track and monitor. The public debt stock, like I said, that we set is 40%, we're at 24%. The portfolio composition between external and domestic is set at 70, so 70% of our debt is domestic and 30% is external. We also have a mix of long to short-term financing, and the mix is 75 to 25, and we're very well within this threshold. So the medium-term debt management strategy shows that the Nigerian debt portfolio is still operating within sustainable limits. But we do have a revenue problem. And this revenue problem we're tackling using the instrument of the Strategic Revenue Initiative. The revenue challenges we have been addressing in a systematic manner, and we have seen improvements in non-oil revenue. Petroleum subsidy deductions and lower oil outputs have had a very, very significant impact in the revenue performance. This underperformance in the oil and gas sector is largely caused by pipeline vandalization, and it is being addressed by the security agencies, and we're beginning to see improvements. There is also revenue leakages that we have identified and are being systematically blocked by the digitizing of the various tax systems that we're operating in Nigeria. There are some ineffective tax incentives that are currently in the process of being reviewed, so some that have reached maturity may not be renewed. There might be some new ones that are introduced, but we're trying to make sure that we're getting value for the investments that we are providing. The SRGI is designed around 3 thematic areas. 1 is to achieve sustainability, the revenue generation. 2 is to identify new and enhanced enforcement of existing revenue streams. And 3 is to achieve cohesion within the revenue ecosystem, alignment between our people and our tools. We have also adopted some innovative approaches to financing infrastructure. One is the Road Infrastructure Tax Refurbishment Scheme, the RITC, which has been launched and designed to leverage private sector capital and expertise to to construct, repair, and maintain critical roads in key economic corridors and investment clusters in Nigeria. This scheme is designed to enable private sector choose a road in Nigeria, mostly a road that has economic importance, use their resources to develop the road and recover their investment over time using the instrument of tax revenues. Second instrument is the sovereign sukuk bonds, in which the debt management office issues instruments that the investing public buys. So while it is a debt instrument, it is also an investment instrument, because we've seen today, after issuing 4 circles totaling about 612 billion, we've seen investors in these roads actually identifying with those that they have invested in. If you go across the country, across the 6 geopolitical zones, you will see signboards that says this road is constructed using sukuk. And it has become so popular that every time we issue a sukuk, the last one we issued was 340% oversubscribed. So it's an investment instrument, even though it's also a debt instrument. The third instrument is the Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, the InfraCo. I'm glad the CBN governor is here. I'm sure he'll talk about the InfraCo, designed with a capitalization of 1 trillion naira, that is an equivalent of about $2.4 billion US, is expected to also catalyze and accelerate investments in infrastructure. And the InfraCo is actively looking for investors that will partner with it for investment in infrastructure. The fourth is investment from the National Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSIA infrastructure projects, which have been established to catalyze growth of key sectors that support national importance. There is the PIDF that is also being implemented by the Sovereign Authority. So the future is bright. The recognition of the need for us to take uncomfortable and very difficult reforms to ensure Nigeria stays on the path of sustainable growth, the federal government is proposing to eradicate fuel subsidy by mid-2023, aggressively grow revenues using all fiscal tools available and at our disposal, continue to promote spending efficiency, create space for private sector participation as anticipated in the National Development Plan. It is our strong belief that the initiatives that are currently under implementation, as well as those that are proposed, signals the federal government's commitment to accelerating sustainable economic development that will be felt by all Nigerians. As we pursue this path, we welcome friends, partners, investors, both domestic and foreign, to partner with us on this journey and to reap the rewards of investing in Nigeria. Nigeria is primed for growth. We thank you for being here.
Afrexim Bank is backing that payment system with $3 billion.
I beg your pardon, Speaker. The guys on the right-hand side here in that hallway.
The clearing and settlement with $3 billion. What that will do for us is that it makes it possible for the Nollywood film producer to sell his product to a Zambian farmer. The Zambian farmer doesn't need to start looking for dollars or euro. He just uses Zambian kwacha and pays for it. Today, he cannot do that because he doesn't, unless he has a credit card that is in foreign currency. What it also does is that the project to bring liquidity to the stock exchanges can go forward. So in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, if you invest in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, somebody in Egypt can buy shares in the Nigerian Stock Exchange using Egyptian pound. The person who is selling in Nigeria gets the Nigerian naira. So what that does then is that it brings all Africa into those stock exchanges and brings liquidity. When you then have liquidity, you have more investments, you have more investors come into those, we have more funding, and our currencies will be stronger. And the final thing I wanted to say, although we have quite a few things we are doing on the inter-African trade, is that the African Union has mandated us to put in place the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Adjustment Facility. The agreement requires that tariffs be removed, and that we started with 90%, but I think we are going to about 97% removal. There are countries in the continent that use tariff as a source of fiscal revenue, not as a means of trade policy. So for them to participate in this trade agreement, we have to find an arrangement to make it possible for them to open their borders. And that is what the adjustment facility is supposed to do. So we have already structured the adjustment facility being established in Kigali. Afrexim Bank is investing $1 billion in it. We expect that we will need $8 to $10 billion, not only to do the compensation payments, but also to support the private sector to retool and participate in the trade. And finally, in Nigeria, we are also helping to make sure investors come. We are developing a quaternary hospital, the African Medical Center of Excellence. A 500-bed hospital we are developing with King's College Hospital. What that will do for the economy, it makes it possible for investors to have the confidence to come. Any investor going anywhere wants to make sure that if anything happens, can go to a first-class hospital. And we are doing one in Abuja.
The chairman of the governors, Kaide Fahimi, President and Commander Excellency, President of the Gambia. The Chief of Staff Governor of the state. Leads their President. What are the responses of the Chief Executive Officer?
Good afternoon, governors. Nardo Bekele Thomas, African lead. So, to put in place, including our leader of the Republic of Nigeria. But our African, that is a powerful country. Nigeria is not sort of the known ones. The science that we have got our priority programs is really to coordinate.
Heroing in other Africa is
Post 2063 implementation plan is coming to an end in the continent. We have added, Your Excellency. So here is the Excellency.
Can I stand here?
Yes, sir.
Staff welcome many of you to the commencement of the Nigerian International Economic Partnership Forum, and my address touched on the fundamentals of Nigeria's efforts to reset her economic policies for effective delivery of services and fulfillments to our citizens. This afternoon, I am once again delighted that you are able to attend this luncheon, which will enable us to informally and with leisure and the luxury of the lunch, discuss as well as share practical experiences on ways of moving our business partnership forward. It is most pleasing, therefore, to have all of you with us this afternoon. As you are aware, Nigeria and the United States have been close allies for many decades. The United States is one of Nigeria's main trading partners and one of our most important diplomatic partners. The relationship is one that has been carefully cultivated over time, and our administration is committed to doing all we can to strengthen it. We can work together to increase the volume of bilateral trade and use today's event as an opportunity to explore and even firm up how this can be achieved. In 2020, Nigeria exported over 1.69 billion United States dollars worth of goods of the United States. These exports were primarily made up of crude oil and other petroleum products. Nigeria's capability is not just limited to oil and gas industry, but a variety of other sectors that hold real potentials. We are the largest economy in Africa and have over 200 million strong consumer market that is home to a range of attractive opportunities in sectors such as agriculture, healthcare, light manufacturing, infrastructure development, and technology. The beauty of this forum is that the ministers responsible for all of these sectors are present here today, as we are some of Nigeria's premier business leaders who are already excelling in these spaces. Since the inception of our administration in 2015, we have focused on economic diversification and successfully achieved this by putting the economy on a path of sustainable and inclusive growth through an open, rules-based, and market-oriented way of doing business. One of my major objectives for this forum is to garner support from the Business Council for international understanding for two of Nigeria's most high-impact developmental ambitions. A, driving strategic and financial investment into Nigeria's real sector transformation, and B, rightly positioning Nigeria as a major international supply chain partner to leading global economies like the United States. It is currently a challenging time for global supply claims. United States shippers have been under strain caused by reduced inputs from China and the growing backlog of European imports caused by the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The world has not fully recovered from economic challenges caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic has taught everyone the importance of having viable alternatives when additional supply chains falter or fail. The current global challenges are expected to continue into 2023 and beyond, but Nigeria is ready to fill a greater amount of global demand. We are leveraging on our skilled labor force, strategic location, as well as production and manufacturing potential to move forward as a key trading partner to the United States. I have always held the strong conviction that there is no crisis without an accompanying opportunity and solution. Increased collaboration with Nigeria and the other developing markets is needed to mitigate against both current and potential future supply chain challenges. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the situation in the world today presents an opportunity for real sector investments in Nigeria. Since signing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria has strengthened its position as a gateway to an integrated continental market consisting of 1.3 billion consumers with an aggregate GDP of 3.4 trillion United States dollars. We are focused strongly on developing Nigeria's manufacturing sector. Our country possesses enormous natural resources and needs the technological partnership to transform this natural endowment into high-value goods. The drive forward our manufacturing and production capacity, we have developed 17 operational special economic zones, with 4 more currently under construction. 14 of these are general economic zones which support export expression, large-scale manufacturing, warehousing, logistics services, tourism, food processing, and packaging and technology development. The remaining 3 are dedicated to oil and gas-related activities. Furthermore, we have commenced the development of 3 automotive industrial parks that encourage the local assembly of vehicles for the Pan-African market. In order to encourage increased private capital inflows into Nigeria, we have put together fiscal investment incentives that include 3 to 5 years of tax holidays for enterprises in what we deem pioneer industries, tax-free operations, and no restrictions on expatriate quotas in our free trade zones. Capital allowances for agriculture, manufacturing, and engineering, and a VAT regime for 5%, among others. We are, therefore, open to widening collaboration with Business Council for international understanding. Going into partnership with trusted local and foreign partners who have well-established networks and understanding the dynamics of the country is one way to guarantee success in Nigeria. Today's event provides a platform for businesses under the Business Council for International Understanding umbrella to make connections with credible Nigerian partners. I trust that this event will help build partnerships that will translate into increased trade and investment flows between Nigeria and the United States. I would like to assure you of this administration's continued commitment to maintain an enabling business environment that is open and friendly to foreign investors. Thank you, and once again, may God bless our youth. Thank you very much.
The president of Gambia will not speak.
And an impact on climate, no doubt about it, and the world is doing so much about it. Our country is committed to net zero by 2060. But that's a pathway, there must be a pathway of providing energy sufficiency and inclusion as we move forward. And therefore, the world has also accepted gas as a transition fuel. There's no alternative to it today, so they can bring the flexibility that is required. So that's what we are doing, to see how we can leverage on the enormous gas resources in our country, provide the flexibility that is required for energy transition. We're embarking on massive infrastructure project, which was also in Mr. President's speech, and to see how we can deliver the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline, which will pass through 11 countries, provide a number of securities, including
bringing up people out of poverty, and also the opportunities that are there that we're doing also in the domestic market, bringing in more gas into domestic market. Having said this, this creates opportunities that are always there. In the oil and gas industry today, there's a huge challenge around oil theft in our country. Clearly a security issue. It's not beyond containment, as the Honourable Minister has also mentioned, and there's so much that our government security agencies are doing. We are collaborating with our partners and stakeholders, and that's coming down very, very drastically. But it also needs international collaboration to come to close on this. What we need here is the cooperation of buyers anywhere in the world. Today we have created a portal where any purchase of Nigerian crude anywhere in the world can be validated. We'll confirm that it is genuine, because there's no transaction in this industry that doesn't pass through the banking system. And I'm happy that I'm seeing a number of bankers here that there's no way you can sell crude anywhere in the world without passing the banking system and some kind of regulatory framework. That's why we need help from the international institutions, both in this room and elsewhere. And more than anything, you can easily validate what we are doing. Those numbers are clear now. We have portals that make that easy for us. And beyond this, inclusion means that we need to be supported. We're already talking to the US DFC, the EXIM, so that they can give us financing and funding for our gas projects. This is very, very critical, so that we can have that flexibility to move forward. And at the back of this, I'm sure some of you may be aware that today we're getting a grant to do baseline emission studies for carbon emission studies in our country by the United States government. And this is very helpful in this very sense that Mr. President also adds that we need to be supported. And that support needs to come. And currently the major source of financing that we're having is largely from the African EXIM. And I'm happy to hear ADB CEO saying that we can also be of help. But more than anything, also the US EXIM will come on the table, and we're engaging them. And ultimately, that creates opportunity for businesses here in the oil and gas industry in terms of financing for gas projects, and not just gas projects. It creates opportunities. Gas-based industries, chemicals will always be required as we continue to progress, and even agricultural chemicals will contribute even beyond 2050. So clearly, it's an opportunity time for everybody in the oil and gas industry. Our country has the largest gas reserve that you can find in Africa. And more than anything, fiscal environment is beautiful. My minister is here, he will go to speak about it, but we know that this is one of the best fiscal environment that you have in the world today, and will contend the security situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to jump quickly at the CEO of the Bank of Industry, because I know Nigeria is a nation where the bulk of our people are small and medium-scale entrepreneurs, and they're doing a lot to ensure that they attract funding for them. And therefore, can you speak to us exactly what is it you are doing, how to ensure that people who are here will have very good MSME people to work with, and you're open for funding to make sure you reach out to Nigerian people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those who don't know, Bank of Industry is the oldest, largest DFI in Nigeria. We are 62 years old, so we have been there for quite some time. So we understand the country. It's owned by government. It's a sovereign-owned bank. My two biggest shareholders are here, Central Bank of Nigeria and Ministry of Finance Incorporated. And we cover all the gamut, from the MSMEs to the large enterprises. The bank, though it's owned by government, is run like a private bank. It's profitable and it has a good structure in place. We're able to raise money internationally. In the last 5 years, we have been active raising money internationally. We've raised about $5 billion. We also focus on the MSMEs, as you have asked. There is a study that was done by PwC. There are about 90 million MSMEs in Africa. In Nigeria alone, there are 41.3 million. So it's huge. They constitute about 60% of the GDP and about 80% of employment. So it's a major area we need to focus on in Nigeria. What we have in Bank of Industry to take care of that market segment, we have what we call a growth platform. And we actually use a lot of IT and technology. Incidentally, about 2 weeks ago, we won the prize in Dead Sea, Jordan, for the best platform, in terms of inclusiveness for Africa. In the last 5-7 years, we have used that platform to touch about 4.2 million enterprises. And through that, we've been able to create about between 9.5 to 10 million jobs. For investors who are here, what they need to know is that, like you've heard the central bank governor, one of the things people worry about is foreign exchange. You are able to, get money from Bank of Industry, at a fixed rate. We're probably the only bank that can give you fixed rate funds for between 8 and 10 years. And because of the way we source our funds and the sovereign backing and the CBN backing, all our loans in Bank of Industry are between 8 and 10% per annum. In an environment where you have just had, like inflation is about 20%. So it means if you are coming to Nigeria, you want to do business, the large enterprises that these MSMEs support. So in summary, we fund both the MSMEs and large enterprises. We have platforms that can handle it, and we are open for business. Thank you.
I'm going to come to the Honorable Minister for the Nigerian Affairs. It's not all about big businesses. It's not all about making money. I know we care about the people, the poor. We care about people that are not to be left behind. And there's a lot of work that the ministry is doing about reaching out to those below the bottom of the pyramid, and where many of us investors and people in our developer partners can support the ministry to ensure that even as we grow our economy, we do not leave anybody behind. Honorable Minister, I want to speak to us, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for giving that background, because people will be wondering why I'm here. I'm Minister for Humanitarian. I do not control the economy or the investors. I do not generate revenue in my ministry. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and be represented by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, fellow panelists, honorable ministers, CEOs, heads of agencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Why investors should invest in Nigeria? They should, because it is a win-win situation. Nigeria has an enabling environment. It's going to be return in investment, and then there's going to be job opportunities for our teeming youth in the country. And here, more or less, as a great beneficiary of the proceeds arising from this partnership between Nigeria and international economic partners. The beneficiary here, I meant, especially in the Lake Chad region, and supporting the people who are affected by these conflicts, especially women and children, people who have been displaced, people who are now refugees in neighboring countries, is an integral part of this pathway. The National Social Protection Policy, which has been put in place, identifies a set of programs and policies that establishes national minimum guarantees and improving the policy which ensures outcomes, and while linking the measures to fiscal transfers for the poor. The National Social Investment Program, please let me just mention that, because this is a very important program that this administration has put in place since 2016, which is a program that has a spending, a budgetary allocation of over 500 billion naira to cater for the poor and vulnerable in our country. And these efforts are towards various cash transfer schemes, grants for the vulnerables, especially the rural people, and also on the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, where government feeds primary school pupils on a daily basis while they're in school. We have the government enterprise and empowerment program that advance credits to the poor and vulnerable for inclusivity. So, Excellencies, the injection of these resources into the hands of the poor and vulnerable Nigerians during these trying times have had tremendous impact on the Nigerian economic outlook as a stimulant for demand for goods and services. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to let you know that even while we get
assets were nationalized because they infringed Nigeria's rules, against engaging
before the country, Nigeria was established since 1890. To answer the way foreign banks will see the risk of Nigerians, because we live there, we understand all the forces ties some years back. Virtually all the invest 6 years, that not too many attention have also been paid to, is a significant progress.
While information on opportunities are being relayed at various plenary sessions, it is expected that more deals will be signed for the betterment of Nigeria's economy.
Well, Nigeria today, to me, is the best country to go and invest because we have the market. Market with the populations, they go together.
So my impressions are very good. Today we have been talking about finance, and we are here to finance projects around biodiversity and carbon credits. This is the goal of Adriada. Adriada is a company that develops projects around biodiversity, and there is a huge possibility to develop this project in Nigeria. So as soon as possible, we'll be there to develop this project. I hope before the end of this year. We have a very good partner, Nobles Energy, to develop this kind of project.
Indeed, we do have a new policy. We call it NATIB, National Agricultural Technology Innovation Policy. And this is a policy that is articulating every other policies in the past. The last one was the National Agricultural Promotion Policy. So this one is putting everything together, especially with the advent of technology, science, and innovation in agri. We are focused towards smart agriculture. So the NATIB is really the connecting point. Focusing on smallholder farmers, absolutely. What I discovered is, not only in Nigeria, but in many other countries, I just went to Brazil, about 70% of their production is from smallholder farmers, and the same thing in Nigeria. So we have special programs where we are helping smallholder farmers. We have been distributing input of various kinds, anything from fertilizer to chemicals, even small equipment that we can assist smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers are the first line of defense when it comes to food security. So we'll make sure we have a program that will do just that. And the NATIB is the one that is also technologically assisting so that we can reach out to them using platforms. They will collect information and they will go and collect their inputs at various areas. I suppose you can call them collection centers, if you will, but these are things that we are doing with smallholder farmers And why are we here today trying to draw investors to Nigeria? Because number one, any nation that has no good agricultural base is really not ready for true development. So Nigeria is focusing on that. And then diversification. Oil and gas are no longer becoming the in thing. Already in some areas, they are defending gas, of course, oil. So Mr. President, when he came in 2015, he focused on agriculture, and that's exactly what we are doing, following in his direction. And agri today is the area that you can diversify to the economy, is contributing over 24% continuously, consistently, and we believe we can do a lot more than that. And part of it is also employing over 35% of the employment in the country. So agri is the place to go. Investors come to Nigeria. We have the land, we have the water, we have the air, we have different climatic conditions, different ecological zones where you can plant anything from semi-arid all the way down to rainforest. We have mapped the soil of Nigeria. We know the nutrient content. We can tell you what to plant, when and where, and how much fertilizer to use. So in essence, we are doing efficient agriculture.
From New York, United States of America, I am Benny Adams, NTA News.